Hey, welcome back. This is The Baseball Show right here on Nickel Press TV. I'm one of your hosts, Andy Singleton. I'm joined by Ralph Lifshitz. As always, we're here to talk baseball with you. We're here to give you 3 hitters today that you might be contemplating if you're unfamiliar with the format. First of all, now that just happened, just so you know, Ralph is in an undisclosed location this week. He's being held hostage. And
underground bunker.
Apparently, they may or may not have paid the lighting bill. But we're here to give you players that you might be scratching your head about, not necessarily the ones you're going to hear about everywhere else. Maybe not necessarily the takes you're going to hear other people giving on these players. We're going to start off right off the bat with Matt Carpenter. He is a popular player for his consistency and versatility. Definitely has value, but you're paying a premium on him where he's currently going as a 5th-round pick, roughly 71st overall. Now, Ralph has alluded to, in past episodes, to the power surge in 2016 with the long ball, and as such, Carpenter's still not a 30-home run guy. As my second baseman, I love him. As my third baseman or first baseman, not so much. You know, I'd love to have his versatility and reliability, but more so as my corner infielder than either second, first, or third. Again, you know, I don't think you're going to get the value that he's going to cost you when there's much more high upside guys I'd prefer to have. If he falls to me later on, like rounds 8, 9, 10, or later, it'll be hard to pass for sure, but that's an unlikely scenario to happen. So a guy like Carpenter, while a lot of people love the name and love the steadiness he's provided, I just don't feel like it's enough, and he's being overdrafted right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, possibly. See, I think that Carpenter is one of these guys where he's just like steady consistency. And there's a lot of reasons that he had such steady consistency. This guy makes tons of hard contact. In fact, last year among qualified hitters, he was 3rd in hard contact behind Ortiz and Freddie Freeman. He was just ahead of Mike Trout. This guy has elite walk rates. He's an elite OVP player. The strikeout rate continues to drop each season. He continues to hit for more power. He's going to have multi-position eligibility. I own him in one league where he has first base, second base, third base, corner infield, and middle infield eligibility. It's in a Fantrax league, actually. So he's a guy that logged enough games at all the different positions that he's going to be eligible there. He's going to be their first baseman this year. So maybe there's a little bit less defensive sort of wear and tear on him, potentially. We'll see. But the thing with Carpenter is I don't think he does anything exceptionally well besides get on base and sort of consistently give you numbers. He's going to give you some counting stats. I mean, he had 500 plate appearances last year. I think he was hurt, a little bit, missed maybe a month or so. But he still put up, solid numbers across the board. And if he plays, 150, 160 games for you, you get him as a 5th-round pick. He's sort of a safe hitter. If you need one of those guys, maybe you took a chance on a pitcher like, Syndergaard or somebody a little bit earlier. I think he offers a really nice, attractive floor, some decent counting stats behind him. He's always going to hit high in the lineup, and he's got some consistent trends with his batted ball stuff that tells me he's going to continue to hit again and hit for power and provide offense for your team.
So here's my problem, and here's my question to you then. I'm not disputing anything you just said. Although 2 years ago, he had his career high with 28 homers. Last year, as you mentioned, he missed some games, finished with, I believe it was 21, and was kind of on that 28 pace. So like I said before, still not a 30-homer guy. We've kind of come to the realization and conclusion that first base, you need to have a bare minimum of 25 home runs to really be considered for that position at this point. Third base has become possibly the most explosive offensive position, especially at the top. And there's some depth to it. There's a lot of multiple positional players currently, or at least coming into this season. I'm thinking of guys like Jonathan Villar, Hernan Perez, even Eduardo Nunez might have some options depending on what league you're in. Point being is, this, like I said, is going to have to be the 5th guy that you put on your roster. I don't know that he provides enough to justify that position as just being kind of a steady guy putting up decent numbers. At second base, he's not one of the top three guys I would want to take, and that's where in those first five rounds, the top three second basemen are going. At first base, he's not one of the top, few first basemen I want to take. So it's kind of the same thing. Did that change your opinion on Carpenter at all?
No, because I think he's the kind of guy that if he could fit into multiple different positions, he's valuable everywhere. Because I think he's within the top 10 of first baseman. He's probably, if he's second base eligible, he's in the top 10 of second baseman. If he's third base eligible, he's probably in the top 10 of third baseman too. So I think he's a guy that, he's a floor pick. If you went for some ceiling guys early on, I don't think he hurts you as a fifth round pick. I don't. And I think he'll, and that's his floor. There's some people that probably reach for him from the fourth round or something like that. But I think he's a guy that could probably drop to you in the sixth or, even seventh sometimes, because people sort of look at the home run total and see 20, especially after last year, not putting everything into perspective, and he drops to you. I don't know. I don't dislike Carpenter, and he's a guy that, a lot of leagues that I'm in aren't redraft or dynasty. And he's a player I trade for because, I think that his trade value is decent. Usually you don't have to overpay for Carpenter.
All right. You might have swayed me a little, but I still don't
got him for Giolito last season. I got him for Giolito when I saw the hype was going back, and then I traded back for Giolito for Adam Conley and some other like Josh Reddick or something. So I actually bought Giolito back for like significantly less than what the other guy paid for him.
So right. So you basically traded Carpenter. You got Carpenter for Conley and Reddick. So you won.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I still think I'm passing. Like I said, if he falls to me a little later, a couple rounds later, maybe I'm in. Maybe Ralph swayed me a little.
Yeah.
You guys be the judge. We're gonna move on to a catcher. This might be one of the more polarizing players in fantasy, at least in the offseason right now. Anything Yankee related seems to draw a lot of passion, whether love or hate. Gary Sanchez is that guy I speak of. I have him down as my number one catcher. And while that may seem like I'm getting caught up in the hype or showing my pinstripes, here are some right now, I truly believe he can finish the season in that position as the number one catcher. At that position, I always want to favor youth, and he has that at just 24 years of age. It feels like he's a lot older than that, as we've known about him for the better part of a decade when he signed with the Yankees as, at the time, the third highest international July 2nd free agent signing. So this guy's been on the radar and on the map for a while. So it might seem like he's older, or maybe he was a bust because it took him this long, but he's still young. He's playing a challenging position. For the believers, you'll point to his historically rapid start when he hit 389 with 11 homers and 21 RBIs in the month of August. Got the Yankees back into the playoff picture and really believing that they might actually be able to get there. For the doubters, you'll point to September when his average dropped to a paltry 225. However, the power numbers were still there in that fade as he posted 9 homers with the same 21 RBI total. He proved to be clutch. He proved he could handle the pressures of being a full-time catcher in New York. And in fact, he's become the face of the Yankees, which in itself is a large feat considering he's basically replacing Derek Jeter in that aspect and in that role. He was a career 275 hitter in the minors, which feels like a very reliable average to expect from him. His floor is as safe as any, in my opinion, and that alone should put him in the top 5 at the catcher position. But there's all that upside to drool over. I mean, he's going high. He's going as a second catcher off the board. You're going to have to take him around pick 48, which really puts a premium on him. So it really comes down to, do you believe it was real, or do you think it was just a flash in the pan? And me personally, I believe it was real. So I believe he holds that value. Now, Ralph, being the Boston homer he is,
the disqualifiers already.
Every reason why you should hate Gary Sanchez, not just as a baseball player, but personally as well. Why Singleton is a far superior catcher. Why Blake Swihart is just waiting to emerge as well. But I will let Ralph speak and plug my ears while he talks about who's becoming one of my favorite players.
I'm assuming the Blake Swihart thing was just like a shot at us as catchers or whatever. But fine, that's okay, whatever. I don't really care about either of those guys. And obviously Gary Sanchez is better. I mean, that's without question. We saw what this guy could do when he gets hot. He went through a streak like this in Arizona back in 2015. So not this year's Arizona Fall League, but the previous season where he showed off his catcher defense, hit 7 home runs. I think he led the league. It was another Yankee, just like Gleyber Torres, who we'll talk about another time on another episode, who had a huge Arizona Fall League. And I think he sort of had the confidence he built from there. The numbers were good in AAA. He looked good in AAA. Once he came up to the majors, things just got out of hand, ridiculous. I mean, he had 20 homers in like 54 games or 53 games. His 30 home runs between AAA and the majors. Do I think he has 30, 40 home run pop next season? No, I think he's probably a 25 homer guy. But I think he can hit 25 homers from the catcher position. He's going to be playing every day. His home games in Yankee Stadium, in ballparks around the American League East frequently as well, which is a good thing. He has the ability to slot in some games at DH and first base. Some of those spots have sort of opened up in the Yankees lineup, so they have some more flexibility in terms of how they fill out the lineup card. And his defense has gotten good enough that he's going to play every day. Now, in terms of the numbers that are a little disconcerting, and the reason that he's not better than Babe Ruth, he's not going to hit 75 home runs, this sort of ridiculous pace that he was on last year. One of the big things is the 40% home run to fly ball ratio. That is way unsustainable. I mean, like a 20% home run to fly ball ratio is high, but 40% is absurd. There was some bad contact there. He has a relatively high infield fly ball percentage, which I think was in the low teens, which is very bad. Hits a lot of ground balls as well. About 50% ground balls. Doesn't have a lot of line drive contact, but he was a top, I think, 5 player. If you looked at players that had 200 or so at bats in hard contact, he was a guy that was right up there in maybe was the top 10. But he's right up there in terms of his hard contact percentage. So even the ground balls that he's hitting relatively hard. There's a lot of pull there too. So there are some stuff that I think, he could have a 260, 20 home run season next year and not be completely out of this world. Long term, I think he's going to have some great seasons as well. He's a good offensive catcher. Is he number one? It depends if you're a ceiling or floor guy. I think Posey is still the floor catcher. Sanchez is the ceiling guy. I know that you said he's your number one. He's Gray Albright's number one. I think I probably would put Posey ahead of him, but it doesn't matter because I wouldn't be drafting either of them. I'm going to sit and wait for my boy Tom Murphy.
And that's fine. And if there was one catcher I would put ahead of him, it would actually be Jonathan Lucroy and not even Posey.
Okay.
That's not a knock on Posey at all. Posey's a great player.
That's fine.
To me, it's really they're all in that top tier, and then there's a drop off. So
I wonder how much Posey catches. I wonder if he's going to play some more first base. So that will little better on his hands. So that's one of the reasons. But Lucroy's fine too. I don't know. I like Posey more.
And I
like the name.
It's hard to not like Buster, but with Brandon out there,
Posey.
What's that?
Or a Posey, Parker Posey, Buster Posey. I don't know any other Posies.
Okay. Well, I mean, you mentioned he might play some first base. Definitely, I agree with that. But being in the NL without the DH, having Belt, still holding things down there. I don't know how much, but certainly a few games mixed in, scattered here and there. You want to move on? I think Gary Sanchez.
Do it, man.
I think Gary Sanchez is unanimous number one catcher. Christian Yelich. What do I want to say about this? I want to say, as long as Giancarlo Stanton is on the Marlins, no one will say this, but I will. Christian Yelich is the best outfielder in Miami. How dare I, you say? Well, his 98 RBIs last year were surpassed only once by Stanton when he finished 2014 with 105. So again, it wasn't like a mile ahead of those 98. Now, of course, that has a lot to do with Stanton's health, and we covered that when we covered Stanton. We personally aren't going to buy it until he proves it, until he does it at least once. Um, so with that being said, yeah, Yelich's numbers are right there. He's a legit 300 hitter. He's 25 years old, just starting to find his power. He's got a sweet lefty stroke. I think he's got legit 30 home run power in his bat. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but I think that is his ceiling. I think he can reach that. I wish he would get back to stealing some more bases, but he's still going to give you 15 plus. You put all that together, and you have a phenomenal, abundantly rich stat line. He's going as the 13th outfielder off the board, 56th overall. Depending on what league you're in, he was top 10 outfielder in some points leagues last year. I think he's back in that top 10 again this year. So if you're getting him as the 13th outfielder, you've already automatically won by getting a player with more value than his draft slot.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was going to say in points leagues, he's a guy that I always want to own. And one of the things that I love about Yelich, and I know I always go to this, but he's a guy that hits hard grounders. He's the only guy that's in the top 25 for hard contact rate that also hits over 50% ground balls. But that's fine because he has the speed that's good. He also uses all fields. He hits to the other side or to opposite field as much as almost anybody. Has a lot of line drives down the middle as well. Has good line drive contact. His line drive rates are about 23%. And he's one of the top guys, top 10 players in terms of exit velocity as well. So, he really makes good contact. That tells me that he knows how to read pitches well and react. He's also someone that can crush a fastball, which is why a lot of those exit velocities numbers are usually, predominantly guys who are great fastball hitters. He has the speed. I actually wouldn't be shocked if he only had 9 steals last year. I'd be shocked if he's not back up 15, 20 steals next season. The homers, you 21, you said 30 home run power. I think because of the kind of hitter he is in terms of ground balls and stuff, he'd have to have an absurd home run to fly ball ratio. Doesn't necessarily have the park for it, but he did show more power with 21 homers in that last year. So if he can balance it a little bit, maybe, have his typical 300 season with a lot of the good counting stats and numbers, maybe have a 15-15 or 15-20 year. This is a guy that could be a top 20 player in all formats and be a real star for you once again, like I said, in points leagues. He's somebody you want to own because he gives you a lot of different stats. And because of the kind of profile he has, the speed, contact, and ground ball, and the fact that he hits the ball to all fields, it's going to keep his average high. He's going to be a guy who has a high BABIP skill set. So I mean that in the sense that he's a guy that has a skill set that allows him to hit for a higher average on balls that he puts in play. Freddie Freeman is like that, and Yelich is another guy who's just like that.
Yeah, he doesn't get a lot of fanfare.
No.
Doesn't get a lot of fanfare, but I think he's one of the safest players in baseball. You mentioned, his skill set playing to his BABIP. Basically, it's saying that's not a luck-driven number. That it's high because he earns it. That's who he is. It's not a misnomer to see it high one year and think it's going to drop or expect it to drop. It should be consistently high. So he puts himself in a position to have that abundantly rich stat line. So, again, I think we're both unanimous about Yelich. If you can get him, don't hesitate. He is a solid player and one that will not hurt you. Of course, injury provided, like anything else. But let's not wish any bad juju on Mr. Yelich. You say it, I say it. Let's say goodbye. Thanks for watching the baseball show. These have been 3 hitters to debate, to maybe want for your 2017 fantasy baseball team. Subscribe, like, comment. See you soon. Take it easy. Thanks.